So good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's Art of Lighting with the Light Doctor himself, Simon Burford. Simon, how are you, my friend?
Very well, mate. And you?
I'm good, mate. Oh, we know we're good because we've been chatting, but no, I am good. Yeah, it's I don't know, in these trying times, it's still good, but it's good to be connecting with our members and obviously our masters who can't obviously be at the studios with us at the moment. We still haven't got a facial headshot of you yet, mate. So they've got to make up what you look
Well,
like.
I don't want to put people off. We're getting good attendees, mate. If I put a people in face up, they might disappear. So that's me in my Power Rangers outfit, and I'm quite happy with
I love it. It makes me feel so uncool. It's very cool. It's very cool. Simon, we're going to ask you. Well, ultimately, obviously you've been around the academy for as long as I know, and we've become great friends, which is fantastic. So people who might not be a little bit familiar with you, and if it might be the first time they've joined one of our webinars, just give us a little insight into you, the photographer, what you do, how you do it, and then we'll tell them how they can get involved with you as well.
No problem. Well, most people will know me as the UK sales manager for the Flash Centre, and I look after all of the end users, all of the companies we deal with, like Photographer Academy, Experience Group, and I go around our reseller network, all of the big retail outlets who resell our gear and give all of the staff training. And on the side, sort of hand in hand with that, I do my Light Doctor lighting training. And I'm a qualified lighting tutor with the BIPP. I hopefully teach people how to get the best out of their situations, their studio spaces, and the equipment that they already have. And that's something I pride myself on. I'll go to someone's studio and show them how to get the best out of what they already own, rather than selling them other bits and pieces that they don't necessarily need.
Brilliant. And obviously we want you to, so if you want to follow Simon and the Light Doctor, so Facebook is at the Light Doctor, DR at the end. And then on Instagram, it's Light Doctor Training. But again, I'll share those links in the chat panel with you and in the follow-up email that you get from us tomorrow. Simon, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm going to give you the screen. Simon, mate, it's all yours.
Thank you, and thanks everybody again for inviting me back and listening to me. You must all be extremely bored sat at home. I am, as I said, I'm the UK sales manager for the Flash Centre. I've been in the industry for over 30 years now, which is quite scary. I've seen the industry from all sides, working in professional hand printing laboratories, been a sales rep out on the road, been a wedding photographer, social photographer, sports photographer, all of it. I just love playing and manipulating light, and try and keep things as simple as possible, really. I am, by my own admission, quite a lazy photographer, so if I don't need to get another light modifier out or a different light source, I won't. I'll make do with what I've got. But the images that I've looked at today to show you all, there's 10 images that are basically showing what you can do, mostly with very simple one light setups. I think there's a couple in there with two, some using the sun as a fill light or a rim light, but mainly just very straightforward portraiture to show the different looks and feels you can get. Some of you that have heard me talk before will know that I like to match my light for light. What I mean by that is, if we're outside in a very hot sunny environment, I like to make my light look like it's coming naturally from my surroundings rather than flash. So if I was in a very hot sunny climate with very hard shadow transitions, I wouldn't be using a big soft diffuse light source because it would look unnatural. I want to match everything around me to make the best of things. So the images that I'm going to show you are a bit of a mixed match. There's lighting diagrams after the main slide, and we can go through those as they come up. But if you've got any questions as we're going through, please stop me. I'm going to mention this now because I will forget. Alongside the Flash Centre, the Light Doctor, we're doing some live videos on the Light Doctor page. There'll be another one over the weekend. We're going to go out on location. Now I'm allowed to go a little bit further, only behind my house, but we're going to balance daylight with flash. So if you want to give us a follow, I'll give you 24 hours notice. I'm not quite sure whether it's going to be Saturday or Sunday yet, but one of the two, probably later afternoon. We'll be doing some balancing daylight with flash. And then next week, if the weather holds up, I'm going to be doing some high sync stuff as well to drop the ambient light and everything else. So without further ado, let's get on to my first image. This one, the next one, and the third image are actually the last images I shot before lockdown took place. This was on my Introduction to Studio Lighting course that we ran in London about 2 or 3 weeks before we went into lockdown. So this is a very fresh new image, and a new girl that I'm shooting in my courses called Yasmin. Excuse me. She's an amazing special effects makeup artist as well, and her normal makeup isn't too shabby either, as you can see. She's got very, very versatile looks. So this image is basically something I shot after hours because I just wanted to get some test shots of her after the training course. And I've used a fairly large octabox off to my camera left, and created almost kind of a Rembrandt style lighting. There's a separation light behind her camera right, just pulling her away from the background and adding that three-dimensionality to the image. So this is something that I enjoy doing in the studio, this sort of fairly simple lighting setup. And although Rembrandt lighting, given the little triangle on the cheek, is very, very basic, I love it as a lighting technique. I think it adds shape, it adds depth to the image, and it's a real classical looking sort of portrait style for me. So I'll show you the lighting diagram on this one. As you can see, octa, 45 degrees to the subject, very, very slightly feathered. It's not a 90-degree to the subject, so it's not a true feather, but it's a mixed match of Rembrandt and a feathered lighting. And from behind is a gridded softbox that just allows me the control and gives that silver edge up her arm to separate her from the background. Excuse me, I've got a very ticky cough today. I'm not ill, don't worry. So if we go on to the next image, it's the same girl, very similar, but a different perspective. I haven't changed the lighting setup at all. All I've done is I've cropped closer to give a very different style and very different look to the image. So there are subtle differences. You can still see the separation light coming behind, highlighting her hair. The catch light in the eye is just about 10 to 11 o'clock, which is exactly where I like it. Anyone who shot with me before, seen my work, knows that I kind of like my catch lights between the 10 o'clock and the 2 o'clock position in the eye as I look at them. This gives me control over my light in a couple of ways. The catch light looks natural because that's what you'd expect to see outside. And also, if I go any higher with my catch light, my nose shadow extends and then comes down and cuts through the top lip, which in any competition is a no-no. So I like to have my nose shadow just halfway between the end of the nose and the top of the lip, as demonstrated here. Having the light in so close as well to my subject has produced a very, very soft, natural, diffused light. So, you know, it's kind of a warm, touchy-feely kind of image, and I think it suits her. It kind of almost tones down the tattoos and the ink that she's got, and makes her look extremely feminine, which is exactly what I wanted to achieve. So, next image. I know, lighting diagram, same lighting setup, just a different crop. This image is actually the last image I shot before we went into lockdown. I think it was the day that it was announced, and we were running our special offers from the Flash Centre in Birmingham, and we had the model booked for the photography show for 5 days, and we didn't want to let her down, so we brought her into the shop, and we were running lighting sessions every hour through the day. and people could come along for free and take advantage of our offers for the show, and just trying to make the best of a bad thing, really. So in the afternoon, we decided to go a little bit crazy, and Loretta is a great makeup artist. She does lots of body painting and stuff. And I said, just go wild, just give me some extreme wild makeup. I said, I don't care what it is, but I want some nice blues and reds and stuff in it. So free license, artistic license to go for it. So she did, and she came out of the studio, and I looked at her and we both laughed. But hey, I think it's great. It's a bit different, and the lighting setup on this for me, I wanted to go for sort of a beauty style lighting setup. So although the lighting diagram that I am going to show you is nearly there, I need to do a bit more explanatory on the lighting setup. So because the very basic lighting diagram creator, I still need to find a better one. This setup is actually a butterfly lighting setup. So the beauty dish is in between me and the subject, but it is facing down. It's literally like an umbrella coming down across the subject. Inherently with butterfly lighting, you tend to get a butterfly shaped shadow underneath the nose, and you would throw the neck and the shoulders into shadow because the head is blocking the light. What I've used on this is actually what they call a Laserlight triflector. It's a 3-panel reflector that goes on a stand underneath the model, and you have these very similar sort of triangular shaped panels, one directly underneath and 2 at the side that flip up, and you can see the catch light in the eye is very slightly different. So we've actually got 3 or 4 different catch lights in the eye, one from the light source and one from the reflector at each of the panels. So although the diagram is very similar, it's not quite as it was. So this gives an overall wash of light across the top of the head. It drops off because I had it gridded, coming down across the subject, giving me a catch light in the eye, but then reflecting the light that we've lost back up underneath at a very shallow depth of field. I think I just shot this on my Pentax 645. So a medium format, low wide aperture shot, just so that your eye is drawn to the makeup in the eyes, which I think is the most important part. So that's that next image. The next one I'm going to show you is a shot from 3 or 4 years ago, actually. This is shot in Portugal.
Mate, can I interrupt? Sorry, bud.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, just because we've had a couple of questions about the previous 2, and obviously they were similar in lighting and respect there. The first question was about it looked like it was a shallow depth of field on both images. How did you manage to get the power of lights down enough to use the wide aperture?
Okay, good question. The kit that I use, unsurprisingly, is Elinchrom. These were shot with the new ELC 125 and 500 shots heads. They both go down to 5 watt seconds. So if you've got them in even a meter square or 70 centimeter square or octagonal softbox, I can literally get the light just out of camera shot, 12 inches away from the subject, providing a beautifully soft light, really gentle shadow transitions and things. But it's using the correct head. So you could do it with the flash gun because they go down to about similar power. The ELC Pro HD, the top of the range lights go down to 5 or 6 watt seconds. The D-Light 1 goes down to 5 watt seconds. So there's quite a lot of heads in the range now that go down that low, as well as the battery systems that you can get in very close and get that lovely natural light and shoot at big wide apertures.
Brilliant. And on the last image of the lady with the crazy makeup,
Yep.
Was it just the highlight, the catch light in the pupil that made the pupil look like it was square?
Yes, yes. Let's go back to it.
I see that. I see the point, but it is, isn't it? It's just that catch light, isn't it?
It's a very small clip in at the top, and it's it depends on the angle of the head with the triflector of exactly what kind of reflection you get. Because she tilted her head backwards, it changed the shape of the reflection coming back up. So yes, well spotted, eagle-eyed. Somebody's obviously sat with their face pressed at the screen. Well done.
That's it for now, mate. You crack on.
All right, no worries. So as I said, this was shot in Portugal. It was a blisteringly hot day. You can see by the sky. This image has a tiny bit of skin retouching on it, but literally straight out of camera. Other than that, because the sun was so harsh, and you can see behind her how harsh the sun was. This was quite a tall wall. So I wanted to replicate that very, very hard specular light that was coming through. Now this is shot at about a 500th of a second shutter speed. Because I wanted to get some blue into the sky without too much messing about, the quicker the shutter speed is, the more color you're going to bring in from the sky, because it hasn't got time to record all of that light. And at 125th of a second, what we would have found is the sky would have been very, very white and washed out. You can see there's a whiter bit directly above the wall, which is where the sun was just behind her. And as the sky goes further up out of shot, obviously the difference in brightness changes. So we've started to bring some more blue in. What it has done is created me a very sort of natural separation between the background and my subject. I had a very, very tightly tight throw reflector on the front. I think it was a 18 centimeter reflector with a grid, which I took out to give me a wider spread. I wanted the wider spread of light to give me the big heavy leg shadows, and you can see how small the light source is in relation to the subject because of how defined the edges of the shadows are. If we'd have made that light source a lot bigger in comparison to our subject, same size modifier but brought it in a lot closer, what we would have done, it had very soft edge shadows because the light source is bigger relative to the subject. Because I've taken it further away, I've mimicked what the sun would do and made a very hard, kind of crispy specular light. And you can see it looks like the sun is illuminating her with a very hard nose shadow. It's not a massively feminine lighting style, but she'd literally just been for a run and she'd come back and she sat on this wall and I said, stay there. And we shot her and that's how she was. I mean, she was a bit hot and sweaty. She looked a little bit Russian, got her makeup done perfectly and everything. And I just think it kind of worked. It's exactly what I wanted it to be. So here is the lighting setup. It's very, very simple. It's got the sun behind as my fill light, my background light, if you like. We've got the light head with a small reflector on, just coming across almost to a Rembrandt style lighting. Again, it's almost nearly loop rather than Rembrandt because the nose shadow is a lot longer across the face. And you can see it's quite a distance away. So, you know, it gives that very hard shadow transition, which I like. It's a moody, dark image. So let's move on to the next slide, and this is a standard one light setup in the studio, and I wanted to get this this shot up to show how soft and natural light can actually look. It's a big octagonal softbox off to my camera right. It's given me some hard shadows because of the angle of her head. Her nose is put the other eye socket into shadow, but I don't mind that. This is kind of what I was going for, giving a lovely soft light down the very edge. And at the other side of the image, you'll see a highlight on her hair. That's from a white wall that was about 4 foot away. So it's filled in naturally from the sides to give some detail into here. But all I wanted you to do was to be drawn into her face and her eyes, her nose, her lips, and show the softness of light as you can get. So that was probably 15 to 16 inches away from the subject. That's as far away as it is, which gives that lovely soft light. And the shadows you can see down the front of her shoulder, a very, very soft edge, which shows you that it was a very soft light source. The light is wrapped around to highlight just underneath on her neck and the other side of her shoulder, but a lot of that fill is actually coming from the white wall that's 4 foot away the other side. So you don't need a reflector in certain times. You can literally have, oh, what am I doing? What's going on, Jay? Sorry about this.
It's all right, mate. You jumped ahead by the looks of things.
There you go. I've got it there. There we are. So there it is. The wall is depicted by the edge of the lighting diagram. It's not to scale, but you can see it was a 175 softbox. So it's a massive, great big light source. It's going to give that lovely, soft, natural light. So let's move on to another outdoor one light shot, which you've already seen. Let me put this on here. I don't quite know. There we go. Now, this is actually shot. Some of you have heard of the Graffi Castle in Italy. And this is a shot that I took at the Graffi Castle. And I was out there helping and supporting Gary Hill, who most of you will have heard of, a superb photographer. And he was teaching, and I was outside, and the model and I decided that we'd go and take some images, because we were both sat around doing nothing. There was a classroom lesson going on, and we just wanted to shoot some stuff. So she grabbed the first thing that she could find. We ran outside. All that I had left to use was a strip box, which is a 130 by 50 strip box. It's camera left, and it's feathered across the subject, but it's in very close. It literally is just out of camera shot, and I believe I cropped it out because it was just in on that that image. So it's given a lovely soft diffused light, and this staircase is naturally red and rusty and just a bit gnarly. It looks great, and I thought I've got to shoot on this staircase. But it was getting the light in the position where it didn't hit the bars and cause too many shadows across her face. So we had to move in backwards and forwards very slightly, just to get that lovely soft feel and not have the light too far away, keeping it very tight. You can see the drop off. You can see the drop off of light on the grey wall, and you can also see the drop off of light starting to fade off on the rusty background as well. So controlling the light and where it goes was exactly where I wanted it to go. I didn't want it to highlight too many things, but I think, you know, it's quite a, her stare makes it quite a powerful image. It's just caught that sort of facial expression. She almost looks a bit angry or moody, whatever you want to say, but I like it. I think it's a nice shot. There's the lighting diagram. It's the wrong shaped softbox. It is a strip softbox, but you know, it doesn't matter what you've got. If you know how to use it, you can get different effects and different looks and feels with the wrong shape modifier, if you like. In an ideal world, I'd like to have had an octagonal softbox there, but it just shows you can get away with using the wrong equipment at times and still get a fairly pleasing image. So next image is in a cocktail bar. Those of you who see my previous webinars will have seen a very similar image to this. It was a more half-length image with a lot more of the background in place. This is using a very small light source, and the reason I put this in is to show you the difference between the bigger diffused softboxes and the smaller, harder light sources. So the smaller the light source in relation to the subject, the harder the light is going to look. So this girl had ridiculously good skin, and I will tell you now, her skin looks like that. It is ridiculously flawless. She's a lovely, lovely girl. She's got lots and lots of different looks, but I know a lot of women just hate her because her skin is so good. Very, very big eyes, very white of the eyes, lovely, and just everything about her. She was just a great girl to photograph. So we had a play in the afternoon. This is using a 70 centimeter deep octagonal softbox at quite a distance. It was about 6 foot away, just feathered across. What I didn't want the light to do was to contaminate the background. It was a cocktail bar. You can see the bottles in the background. The light was, as I said, about 6 foot away, feathered across and just facing very slightly down. It was above her, and you can see where the catch light is in the top of the eye, again between sort of 10 and 11 o'clock. The nose shadow you can just about see going across the side of her cheek, but it's not cut into the top lip. So there was that very, very fine adjustment of getting the light in exactly the right place. Her skin was, I think she was obviously fake tanned anyway, so it was fairly orange. It kind of matched the ambience of the shot and the natural ambient light. So I kind of left it as it was, and you can see the whiteness of my flash in her eyes. But I don't think that matters. I think her eyes are striking enough to give you that that really powerful look. And again, there's your softbox to the side, feathered across so it doesn't go back onto the background, and just gives that lovely kind of tonal range between your highlights and your shadows because it's a smaller light source. But hopefully it's giving you an insight into what you can do when you start messing about with single light sources. You don't need 4 or 5 lights in certain situations. Here's another one, a bit of a playtime this one was, and having a great time playing with a single light source. A single light source with the addition of some polyboards and something called a V-flat. For those of you who don't know what a V-flat is, it's basically 2 uprights of white material, either polystyrene or cardboard. These were about 7 or 8 foot tall and probably 4 foot deep, put together into a V. Now the idea of this is you have one light source that you can fire into the middle, and you can spread the V as wide as you like to give you a much wider spread, or you can narrow it down as low as you can get it to give you a very, very fine spread of light to control. You could use it as an edge light, a rim light, whatever you wanted to do. The polyboards behind are blue. I didn't bother to retouching out the marks and stuff on them because I think it all adds to it. It's all just a bit kind of grungy behind, but she's brilliantly done up. So I kind of like the look and feel of it. That again has very, very little retouching on it. You can see because I'd have spent ages taking the marks out of the board. But again, using the right light source makes you saves you a lot of time with skin smoothing and things afterwards, because you know the bigger, the softer the light, the more natural that it looks, and it gives you that nice skin smoothing effect in camera. So it saves you a lot of time in post-production afterwards. Now if I show you the lighting diagram to this, you'll be able to see on here the V flat was behind me, so I'm sort of, I don't know, midway. I'm probably shooting at her waist level. The light source behind it is obviously on a little reflector, but it's going into a big V flat, which makes it a huge light source. I've then got 2 polyboards either side to contain where my light goes. So all of the spread that's coming out from the V hits those polyboards and keeps everything within that space that I'm shooting. It controls where the light goes. There were some other bits and pieces behind those polyboards which were highly reflective, and I didn't want anything coming back that I didn't have control of. So it was all a case of just trying to control that little situation in a massive infinity cove that I was shooting in. But the silver bits and stands and there was mirrors and everything, I didn't want them contaminating my image. So it was all about controlling my environment, which is exactly what I've done there. And if you guys have got smaller spaces with very, very bright white walls, you could get yourself some big sheets of plywood, paint them black, to put them either side to stop the reflections coming back off the walls and contaminating your lighting pattern. And this is something I come across a lot, people in their garage studios, very small studios that they're using in the back of their house. They paint the whole thing white. The problem with painting a studio white in a small environment like that is that you lose complete control of your light, because it's always going to reflect off some surface. It's always going to come back and fill in somewhere that you don't want that fill to be. So I always say to people, don't bother going all the way down the road and painting it black, but paint it a mid-grey colour. If you paint both the sidewalls grey and leave the back wall white, you can always put a black background up afterwards, or you can use those greys to suck the original light out of the fill side that should have reflected back from the white surface, and it creates what we call a subtractive fill. It takes any excess light away, doesn't allow it to come back, and then you have full control over your studio setup. So you could do the same thing, as I said, with the polyboards by painting them grey or black, putting them in at the side just to stop reflections coming back in. Light control for me is massively, massively important, and it will make or break an image as far as I'm concerned. This is using a very, very similar technique, and again, it was a day I had to play with some different lighting setups, and this is quite an interesting one. It looks like a very flat light, and you know, you'd be right. The lighting wasn't the key for this one. The lighting was complementing the messed up makeup, and just having a play and seeing what we could do with the gold choker. And if I show you the lighting diagram on this one, I bounced it into a big white reflector and then stood just underneath the reflector and shot it. So you can see that there's a massive catch light in the eye that gives this big flat lighting pattern, but it's done the job. It's highlighted exactly where I wanted it to go. The background has gone, because she was quite a way away, the background has got a different colour to what it originally was, because I haven't lit it, because the drop off of flash hasn't quite reached the background to give me any other effect but that. But I like it. It's neutral, and it just complements the messed up makeup. I love a bit of messed up makeup every now and again. And then we go to, I think, my final image that I've put up for you guys, which was one that Jay used for the advert. This was shot with what I wanted you to believe was the sun in the background. This is actually a flash head, a bare flash head with a little reflector on the back, because it was a really grey, miserable day outside. And although the gardens we were shooting were beautiful, they looked horrendous because it was just standard British weather in Warwickshire. So we did this to give the idea that it was really sunny behind her, and one light from the front and a big light source to give that very soft shadow transition. Look how soft edged the shadow is compared to some of the shots you've seen before, where the light source has been a lot smaller. Further away gives you a much harder edge. So this now, the shadow transition, it's a perfect Rembrandt style lighting setup. You can see the perfect triangle on her cheek on your screen of your right, and a very soft edge shadow to show you that it's a very soft light source. Now, although the reflector's on there, it was actually a big 70cm beauty dish with a shower cap on the front of it, which gives it that level of diffusion. It was in very, very close. It was probably, again, just out of camera shot and just feathered across the front of our subject. And you can see the light's fairly high because of the catch light is just nearly disappearing out the top of the eye, but it's there. So I was happy with that, and the backlight gives it that impression that there is a strong sun behind, or whatever you see at the top of her shoulder, and everything else. So it's just really an insight into exactly what you can do with some very, very basic gear, and all of the stuff I've shown you today is very possible with a flash gun and a white wall. If you want to bounce the flash gun off the white wall to make the light source much, much bigger than it actually is, give you that lovely soft natural light. Don't ever be afraid of bouncing light. If you bounce light, yes, you lose control of it a little bit, but if you do what I've told you and have two sidewalls of your studio in grey and your back wall white, you can always shoot against that white background and bounce off a big bit of polyboard or a bit of white card, or anything that's going to make that light source a lot bigger. It's going to be a lot more natural, and it's going to give you a really, really nice, soft, natural feel to the lighting. So that's me. That's my 10 images, virtually one, possibly two light setups. and I hope that gives you an insight into exactly what you can achieve with the minimum amount of gear. And it's not all about having all of the gear and multiple lights, because most of the time I can't be bothered, and there's me being honest.
Fair play, nice one, mate. Well, sit down for a minute because we've got some questions for you. So we've got mostly kit questions, to be honest, because I think we asked the directional stuff as we were going through, really. But I'll scan the question panel, and if I've missed anything, I'll repeat it anyway.
Okay.
This is very specifically to do with Elinchrom and the lighting materials that we have available from them. So I'll read it through, and if I've got it wrong, just tell me, and I'll read it through again. So
Yeah.
I'm finding that with my D-Light units, of which I do have 6, I use the diffusion. If I use the diffusion disc, it seems like a fairly sorry, I'll try again. Right, I'm finding that the standard softbox on my D-Lights, which I own 6, are very specular. If I use the diffusion disc, it seems like a fairly expensive option considering I've got 6 units. Is there something else available with double diffusion that I could get instead? Does that make sense? Have I read that right?
It does, yeah. So I'm presuming that the person in question is using the original kit softboxes that came with the units, and maybe they can confirm that as I'm explaining it, and you can confirm it with me. Basically, they were Portalite softboxes, and they used to come with 2 66cm square boxes. Now they come with a 66cm square and a 56cm octagonal. Now, they are both single diffusion on one because they are kit softboxes. They're a good all-rounder. They're great as a get them out, set them up, start shooting type softbox, but they're not a master of anything. They're as I say, they're a good all-rounder. We find that everybody that starts off with the kit softboxes at some point then starts to add bigger diffused softboxes. Now, they don't have to be Elinchrom softboxes. We also do a range of Fotic softboxes, which are very quick up and down units, double diffused. They come with a grid, an egg crate for the front to allow you to control your light, all different shapes and sizes, and they're all about 100 quid with the carry bag and the grids. So you'd have to spend a huge amount of money to get some bigger, more professional softboxes. I'd love to know what power those D-Lights are. I'm guessing that they're probably 2s or 4s, because it sounds like the power doesn't go down very low on them, and they have to come back quite a way, which makes the light source a lot harder, which will make, and again, because it's not double diffused, it will give you that specular kind of light look. And if you don't have the relevant diffusers to put inside the little opaque discs, yes, it's going to cost you some money, but I suppose if you bought 2 or 3 of them for your main lights, you very rarely need them for the backlights. If you bought them for the main lights, you'd probably find that it will do a much better job, because it gives you that extra level of diffusion. But it's physically down to the size of the softbox that's being used.
Yeah, the gentleman's just said that he's got 4 D-Light 4s and 2 D-Light 2s. And just to clarify, Fotics is obviously it's a third-party brand of modifier, but available through the Flash Center, isn't it? So
it is. Again, I'm gonna say this because I've done it before. Sometimes you need a little bit of color correction, but I've used a white sheet over the front of those soft boxes before, like a white cotton bed sheet. Although they look white, they generally give quite a cold light, but if you set your white balance properly, it actually doesn't matter. It's all good. It gives you that extra level of diffusion. Now, here's the complicated bit. Because the light source is so far away from the subject, although you put another level of diffusion on, it's not going to soften the light anymore. So it's not going to make the light less hard. It's just going to appear more diffused because you put another level of diffusion on the front of it. The hardness and softness of the light comes in relation to how far away the light source is from the subject. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay. So we just increase and decrease contrast, if you like, by diffusing the light source further. It's all to do with the relative size of it to the subject at the time. So, you know, you could photograph, for instance, a bumblebee on a background with a 56 centimeter softbox at 8 inches away. That's a massive, massive light source compared to what you're photographing. If I photograph the lovely Jay with a 56 centimeter softbox, I'm sorry, buddy, but it's tiny compared to you or me. So it's going to give you a much harder look to the light, because the light source, even at 8 inches away, is still fairly small compared to the size of you or I. So the bigger the softbox, the softer, the more natural the light's going to be. And because you've got D-Light 4s and you've got D-Light 2s, off the top of my head, the D-Light 4 goes down to about 20-25 watts. The D-Light 2 goes down to 15 watts ish. You think the little D-Light 1 goes down to 5 watt seconds, you can get that box in a lot closer and shoot up much wider apertures. So although the D-Light 4 and the 2s are fantastic units, they're bomb proof, they go on forever, they're older technology, therefore the power doesn't go down quite as low. You can't get them in quite as close as you used to be able to.
Brilliant. Okay, so I'm sorry, I'm just going through the list, make sure I'm ticking them off as we've gone. Well, we've had some questions about two specific images, Simon. I don't know how easy it is. Might be as easy just to jump back to them. The first one was the girl in the bar.
Yep.
Yeah, and the question is, how would you have changed the lighting to get more ambient background lighting?
Okay, good question. I would have opened my shutter, or dragged my shutter, slowed it down. So this is done off the top of my head. It was about a 60th, probably an 80th of a second. This allows the shutter more time, because it's fairly dark in the background. It was very, very subdued light. So if I'd have wanted to have that much brighter and maybe balanced exactly with the subject and the lighting on the subject, I'd have dropped my shutter speed down to a 15th of a second, possibly a 30th of a second, something like that, to bring in more light. So the longer the shutter is open for, it will bring the ambient light in. It will never affect the exposure on the subject. So when we're shooting with flash, the shutter speed controls the ambient only, and the aperture controls not only our depth of field, but it controls the exposure on our subject. So the longer the shutter speed is, I handheld everything. I never ever use a tripod. The flash goes off very, very quickly. The ignition, the peak, and the drop off of the flash happens so fast that I can handhold down to about an 1/8 of a second, shooting flash, and the flash will always freeze the image. So it's quite nice. Obviously, you can't stand there and move the camera around. You have to be as still as possible. But you could get down to an 1/8, a 10th, 15th of a second handheld using flash, no problem at all. So the short answer is drag the shutter, make it stay open for longer to be able to bring in as much ambient light as you want to. In this case, I didn't want any more because it would have then been a lot more distracting, and you wouldn't have been drawn to her rather than the background. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, brilliant, mate. Staying with the images then, the V panel one that we talked about. It's that one, isn't it? Is it that one? It's that one. Yeah. Let me just make sure I read it correctly. With the V panel, you are positioned in the front according to the diagram. Do you not block the lighting anyway?
I do. You've got to make yourself as small as possible. If you've ever met me, you'll know that that's quite difficult for me. I'm quite a big lad. So I tend to shoot a funny angle. I tend to get on my knees. I tend to crouch down and turn my body sideways towards the light. to stop my shoulders and things blocking the light. What I did explain is that you can see I'm quite a lot lower than the model. I was probably at waist height. The light source was above my head, shining in, so I was probably blocking quite a lot of the light coming back. But you can still hit the top of her thighs, which is great. But the light that was lost by me being in the way is further down the image, which didn't register. It wasn't a problem. So if you shoot at the right angle, there's nothing wrong with the right focal length of lens shooting up towards the model, if she's not too short to start with. If she's very short, vertically challenged, I think is a correct term, you can make somebody look a lot taller by shooting lower down. But if somebody's already short, you've got to be quite careful with the angles that you go. But Lily is quite tall, she's very slender, and she's got very long arms, so the angle looked okay. If I'd have gone up and made her look quite short from above, it would have been different and the lighting wouldn't have worked. So, you know, ducking down underneath the light source using the top half of the V flat has filled in exactly where I wanted it to go. So yeah, just move yourself.
Brilliant. Where am I? You mentioned shooting through a white sheet. Could this be done with this white sheet hanging from a backdrop stand? I suppose that's probably one of the easiest way to do it, right?
Absolutely, yeah. It doesn't matter how you do it. You can stretch. I've done before. Is this the same Portalight question? Was this the D-Light 4?
No, I don't think it. No, it's from a different person. So I'm not sure which shot. I don't remember which shot you were referring to. Which shot was it you were referring to, Si?
Which one was it? It was the next one. It was this one. Where you bounce into a reflector, so it's just the reverse basically. So what I've done, people with little portable soft boxes like the Portalights, the 66 squares and things like that, if you've got enough space to set up a white sheet on your background support system, depends on how thick the sheet is, you can always double it over by folding it in half, or putting it over the top of the pole and letting half hang down one side and half the other to double the diffusion. What you can do, like when you're using an umbrella, you put an umbrella into a light, and you always make sure, if you want the biggest light source possible, that you move the brolly shaft in and out of the light to fill the brolly with light to make it as big as possible, or you narrow it down by bringing the brolly closer to the light source to make a smaller diffuse light. Same principle when you're using a sheet. If you wanted to, you can have your background support system set up with your white sheet attached to it in whatever configuration you want it in. You can then turn the modeling lamp on with the standard kit softbox on, take it back away from the sheet that you're shooting through till you see all of the edges filled with light, so you've illuminated the whole of the sheet. It will drop your exposure down. So if the white sheet is the same kind of thickness as the diffuser of your softbox, generally you'll lose a third to half a stop of light. So going back to the D-Light 4s and 2s, if you wanted to reduce the power of those lights and get those lights in closer to shoot at wider apertures, you can take that light further back. You're projecting your light onto this white sheet, which will then go through, but you've made that light source massive then, because your light source is the nearest part of whatever's illuminated to your subject. So on a softbox, your light source is the front diffuser of the softbox. It's not the softbox itself. It's not the light itself. Your light source is the front cover of the softbox. So the bigger you make that in comparison to your subject, the softer, the more natural, the more diffused the light's going to look.
Brilliant. Okay, we've got a few left, mate. Where are we? Okay. Your personal preference for software for retouching?
Photoshop and Lightroom.
Brilliant. I'm going to put you on the spot with Elinchrom now. This is how it comes through. So do you know if Elinchrom have any plans to do a battery-powered studio head like Profoto do?
Oh, if I had a quid for every time I get asked this question. Elinchrom have been toying with the idea of battery-powered heads. As a professional photographer, the problem I have, and a lot of photographers that are out on location have with battery-powered heads, is the weight of them. So, although I hate cables, in any situation, cables are a pain in the arse. The problem you've got, and the questions we ask photographers that are out in the field shooting with these things all the time, would you prefer a cabled, tiny, lightweight head that you could hold up on a boomstick forever and a day and it's not going to be a problem? Or would you prefer us to stick all of the weight on top of a boomstick with a softbox and you've got to hold that all day? Everybody always comes back with the smaller, lighter cabled head, because generally wedding photographers that are out on location have younger assistants. They quite often are smaller female assistants who don't want to be hanging around, especially on a breezy day with a softbox and a 5-6 kilo head on the end of a pole. There's two camps here, and it depends on which one you're in. If you shoot in a studio and your lights are on a stand constantly, then I can see the attraction of it. But as a location photographer, I tend to do quite a lot more environmental stuff than I do in a studio. I would prefer the lightweightness of a cabled head on a boom pole or something to hold. It's a lot easier to hold. The new ELC 125 and 500 heads work on a different technology to the rest of the Elinchrom system, apart from the battery-powered ELB 500. I think at some point, Elinchrom, and I'm guessing here, I don't know, I'm guessing that those heads will possibly have a battery option at some stage. But Elinchrom don't do anything by halves. I saw that ELC 500 and 125 head probably 2 years ago. And it's taken that long to come out because everything has to be absolutely bang on. It has to be perfect for them to release that product. So if there is a battery one coming into the world, it may be a year, it may be 2 years away, because they'll need to get everything absolutely spot on before they release it. That's all I can tell you.
Brilliant. Well, you answered, so that's all we can do, isn't it, mate? Mate, that's all the questions. Lots of praise and feedback, and thanks for a very detailed explanation. So brilliant as usual.